Hello, juniors. I am going to be explaining the guidelines for a science senior project. So if you're interested in doing something related to science, please go ahead and open your science guidelines and I will walk you through the requirements and some additional pointers. First of all, the most important thing to know with a science project is that you're looking to demonstrate your learning, your stretch, above and beyond what you've done in your Helix science classes. So you've definitely learned skills in those classes and we want to see you apply those skills, but not recreate or replicate one of the experiments you've already done in science class. So as you think about your idea, it might range from an experiment that you conduct to a machine or apparatus that you create, or even a hypothesis that you'd like to test and then record various outcomes and draw conclusions. You'll want to consider your consultant. This is an area where students in the science field really need to consider, do I know an adult in this field or who could help me problem solve or gather these materials or make conclusions or interpret data? So think about who might be your consultant before you proceed with a science project. All science projects will require a scientist journal. This is really the documentation that will prove your learning and your 20 hours that you have been working with creating that apparatus or testing different conditions. It's all going to come out in that journal that you create. If you look to the documentation section of the guidelines, which is the second page of the science project guidelines, you will see what the scientist journal must include. All science projects will require 10 pages of notes. These could be handwritten or Google Doc, and this is just your learning, your research, things you looked into before you started setting up for testing your hypothesis, different materials you might have gathered, different strategies or hypothesis or things you think might happen while you gather your data. So this is a place to demonstrate your learning and research and also your hypothesis and eventually your outcomes. You will need an experimental design, or EXD, which you should be familiar with from your Helix science classes. And you will also need a draft of a sketch or maybe a diagram of what you are using for your project. So if you're making an apparatus, you're designing a small machine, you'll need to make a detailed sketch of that machine that you are creating. If you purchase anything for the course of your project, you will need to keep those receipts. The easiest thing to do is take a picture of them as soon as you get the receipt, and that way it's never lost, and add it to your Google Drive. You will also need to look up 20 terms or definitions that are relevant to this science field. So if it has something to do with plants, you would look up terms in a botany field. So 20 terms or definitions that are new to you that demonstrate your learning. Finally, you will have observations at the end of your project. How did the machine turn out? Is it filling its proposed role? Is it doing what you wanted it to do? How did the data turn out from your observation? So you're drawing your conclusions and into your final results that you will explain at senior defense. So once again, when you're thinking of your experiment, you're thinking of an apparatus or machine you'd like to create, it's going above and beyond your Helix labs, above and beyond your learning in your Helix classes, and applying those scientific method skills that you have been learning throughout your courses. Finally, your final machine or your final data conclusions, which you might present in a chart or Google presentation, depending on the case, should be presented to an audience of 10 people. So if I created something, I would show that final product to 10 people, and I would create a 5-question survey that they would fill out. What did you think about the overall design? What did you think about how it completed its function? You create 5 questions related to your final data, final conclusions, or final product. 10 people will complete those evaluations and hand them back to you. You'll want to be sure to bring your final machine or your final presentation of data to your senior defense and include it, for example, pictures of your final machine, your Google presentation where you showed what you learned from this experiment. All of that will need to be in your portfolio. Remember, consultant is important, especially for a science project, and that scientist's journal, it can be a Google Doc or a pen and paper journal. If it's a pen and paper journal, do not lose it. If it's a Google Doc, you keep adding to it. You can add photos, you can add text. And that's about it. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, be sure to see your senior project coordinator. Thank you.